I'm Jeremy Grantham. I'm 86 years old, and I've spent over 50 years predicting market bubbles and economic crashes that most people never see coming. I warned about the dot-com bubble in 2000. I predicted the housing collapse in 2008 before anyone else was paying attention. And today, with decades of experience analyzing real estate markets across this country, I'm going to tell you something that will make every realtor in 5 specific states absolutely furious. There are 5 states in America right now where buying a home in 2026 is financial suicide. And if you're thinking about buying in Florida, Texas, Arizona, Nevada, or California, you need to hear this before you sign anything, because what I'm about to share with you could save you from losing hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe more. Back in 1974, fresh out of my early investing years, I made a mistake that still haunts me. I bought property in what I thought was a booming market. Everyone around me was buying. Prices were climbing fast. The local experts said it was the perfect time. I ignored the fundamentals. I ignored the data that was screaming danger. I let excitement override analysis. Within 18 months, that market collapsed. I watched my investment lose 40% of its value while I was stuck paying a mortgage on an asset that was drowning. I couldn't sell without taking a massive loss. I couldn't rent it out for enough to cover the payments. I was trapped. And the only reason I survived that disaster was because I had other investments that kept me afloat. Most people don't have that cushion. Most people put everything into one house in one market and pray it works out. That's not investing. That's gambling. And right now, in 2026, there are 5 states where that gamble is almost guaranteed to fail. Let me be very clear about what I'm going to give you today. This isn't speculation. This isn't fear-mongering. This is hard data combined with 50 years of watching real estate cycles destroy families who bought at the wrong time in the wrong place. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which 5 states are walking into a housing crisis, why the fundamentals are collapsing, what the warning signs are that nobody's talking about, and most importantly, what you should do instead if you're planning to buy property in the next 12 to 24 months. I'm going to show you the actual numbers that real estate agents and mortgage brokers don't want you to see. And I'm going to give you a 7-step plan to protect yourself and your money in 2026. Whether you're a first-time buyer or someone thinking about relocating, if any of this resonates with you, if you're worried about making a massive financial mistake, hit that like button right now. Now let's talk about why this matters more in 2026 than any other year in recent history. We're sitting at a convergence point that I haven't seen since 2006 and 2007, right before everything fell apart. Interest rates are high but unstable. Home prices are still elevated from the pandemic bubble. Insurance costs are exploding in certain regions. Property taxes are climbing faster than wages, and migration patterns are shifting in ways that are going to devastate certain markets while strengthening others. But here's what makes 2026 especially dangerous. Most Americans don't realize we're at the tail end of a 15-year real estate bubble that started after the 2008 crash. Yes, we had a crash in 2008, but what followed was a decade and a half of artificially low interest rates, government intervention, and speculative buying that pushed prices far beyond what fundamentals justify. Now, that bubble is starting to leak air. Not everywhere. That's the key. Not everywhere. But in 5 specific states, the combination of overvaluation, climate risk, insurance costs, tax burdens, and population dynamics is creating a perfect storm. And if you buy in one of these states right now, you're not buying a home. You're buying a liability that could trap you for a decade or more. Let me tell you something that most people your age don't hear enough. You are not behind. You are not too late. You are not missing out. In fact, if you're in your 20s, 30s, or even 40s and you haven't bought a house yet, you might be in the best financial position of your entire generation. Why? Because you didn't buy at the peak. You didn't lock yourself into a 7% mortgage on an overpriced property in a collapsing market. You still have the flexibility to wait, to move, to invest your money in ways that will actually build wealth instead of draining it. The people who bought in 2021 and 2022 during the frenzy, they're stuck. They paid $500,000 for a house that's worth $450,000 now and dropping. They're paying $3,500 a month on a mortgage while watching their neighbors rent similar places for $2,200. They can't sell without taking a massive loss. They can't refinance because rates went up. They're trapped. You're not trapped. You have options, but only if you're smart about where and when you buy. Here's what nobody wants to admit. The American dream of homeownership has become the American trap of home ownership. For most of the 20th century, buying a home was a reasonable financial decision. Homes cost 2 to 3 times your annual income. Mortgage rates were predictable. Property taxes were manageable. You could buy a house, pay it off in 30 years, and it would be worth something when you were done. That world is gone. Today, in the 5 states I'm about to detail, homes cost 8 to 12 times annual income. Insurance costs have doubled or tripled in 3 years. Property taxes are rising 5 to 8% annually, and the risk of natural disasters, whether it's hurricanes, wildfires, heat waves, or flooding, is making entire regions uninsurable or unlivable. If you buy in the wrong place, you're not building equity. You're signing up for decades of financial stress that will prevent you from building real wealth. And that's the opportunity you're wasting if you rush into homeownership in one of these disaster zones. Every dollar you don't spend on an overpriced house in a collapsing market is a dollar you can invest in assets that actually grow. Index funds, dividend stocks, real estate investment trusts in stable markets, starting a business, building skills that increase your income. These things compound. These things build wealth. A house in the wrong location at the wrong time does the opposite. It consumes your wealth while pretending to build equity that doesn't actually exist. Let me ask you something honest. Are you buying a house because the numbers make sense, or because everyone around you says you should? If you're feeling pressure from family, from friends, from a partner, or from society to buy a home before you're financially ready or before you've analyzed whether it actually makes sense, comment your specific struggle below and finish with this. But I will win this fight. Sometimes the smartest financial decision you can make is to do nothing while everyone else is panicking into bad choices. Your comment might help others who are facing the same pressure to buy when they should be waiting. Now let me show you exactly why these 5 states are financial traps in 2026, starting with the numbers that real estate agents will never mention. State number 1, Florida. Let me give you the data that should terrify anyone thinking about buying in Florida right now. Home prices in Florida increased 83% between 2019 and 2023. That's not appreciation. That's speculation. That's a bubble. And bubbles always pop. The median home price in Florida today is around $410,000. That's higher than the national average of $380,000. But here's the problem. Florida wages haven't kept pace. The median household income in Florida is $63,000 per year. That means the average home costs 6.5 times the average income. Historically, when that ratio goes above 5 to 1, you're in bubble territory. But the real disaster in Florida isn't the purchase price. It's what happens after you buy. Homeowners insurance in Florida has become a catastrophe. The average annual premium in Florida is now over $6,000 per year. In some coastal areas, it's $10,000 to $15,000 annually. That's more than property taxes in many cases, and it's only going up. Why? Because insurance companies are fleeing the state. In the last 3 years, more than a dozen insurers have gone bankrupt or stopped writing new policies in Florida. The ones that remain are raising rates 30% to 50% per year. And if you're in a flood zone or hurricane zone, which covers most of the desirable coastal areas, you might not be able to get insurance at any price. Without insurance, you can't get a mortgage. Without a mortgage, you can't buy. And if you already own, you're stuck with skyrocketing costs that make the property impossible to sell. Property taxes in Florida are also climbing fast. The average effective property tax rate is 0.98%, which sounds reasonable until you factor in that Florida has no state income tax, so they make up the revenue through property taxes, sales taxes, and fees. On a $400,000 home, that's $3,120 per year. And with home values reassessed regularly and rising, your tax bill climbs every year even if your income doesn't. Add it all together. $400,000 purchase price. 7% mortgage rate means $2,661 per month in principal and interest. $6,000 per year in insurance is $500 per month. $3,220 in property taxes is $327 per month. HOA fees, which are common in Florida, average $300 to $500 per month. Total monthly cost over $3,800 to $4,000 per month. And that's before maintenance, repairs, or utilities. For a household making $63,000 per year, that's $5,150 per month gross income, $4,000 after taxes. You'd be spending nearly everything you make just to keep the house. That's not sustainable. But it gets worse. Florida's climate risk is accelerating. Sea level rise is real whether you believe in climate change or not. Coastal flooding is increasing. Hurricane intensity is increasing. And the cost of recovering from these events is being passed on to homeowners through insurance premiums and special assessments. I've looked at the actuarial data. By 2030, large portions of coastal Florida will be effectively uninsurable at any reasonable price. That means property values will collapse because buyers won't be able to get financing. If you buy now, you're buying at the peak right before that collapse happens. And finally, Florida's population boom is already reversing. Yes, people moved to Florida during the pandemic, but now they're leaving. Why? Because the insurance costs are crushing them. Because the heat is unbearable for half the year. Because the traffic is nightmarish. Because the cost of living went up, but the wages didn't. Net migration to Florida peaked in 2022. It's declining now, and when migration reverses, home prices follow. Florida is a trap. Don't buy there in 2026. State number 2, Texas. Texas has been marketed as the affordable alternative to California. Low taxes, no state income tax, business-friendly environment, jobs everywhere. And for a while, that was true. But 2026 is a completely different story. Home prices in Texas have exploded. Austin saw prices increase 78% between 2019 and 2023. Dallas was up 61%, Houston up 52%, San Antonio up 55%. The median home price in Austin is now over $550,000. In Dallas, it's $385,000. These are not affordable markets anymore. And the problem is that Texas wages haven't kept up with Texas housing costs. The median household income in Texas is $67,000. In Austin, where homes cost $550,000, you're looking at an 8-to-1 price-to-income ratio. That's bubble territory. That's unsustainable. And just like Florida, the hidden costs in Texas are crushing homeowners. Property taxes in Texas are among the highest in the nation. The average effective rate is 1.74%. On a $400,000 home, that's almost $7,000 per year. And Texas reassesses property values aggressively, which means your tax bill climbs every year as your home value increases. You think you're saving money because there's no income tax, but you're paying it all through property taxes instead. Homeowners insurance in Texas has also exploded. The average annual premium is now over $4,500, and in areas prone to hail, tornadoes, or flooding, which covers most of the state, you're paying $6,000 to $8,000 per year. Insurance companies are raising rates 20% to 40% annually because of increased claims from extreme weather events. Hailstorms in Dallas-Fort Worth cause billions in damage every year. Flooding in Houston is getting worse. Tornadoes are unpredictable and devastating. The power grid in Texas is another massive risk that nobody talks about. We all remember the 2021 freeze when the grid failed and people died. That wasn't a one-time event. Texas has an independent power grid that's not connected to the rest of the country. When demand spikes or supply fails, there's no backup. Summer heat waves now regularly push the grid to the breaking point. And if you're a homeowner, power outages mean spoiled food, no air conditioning in a 105-degree heat, and potential damage to your home and appliances. You can't insure against grid failure, you just eat the costs. And here's the real problem with Texas. The migration boom that drove prices up is slowing down. People move to Texas for affordability. But now that Texas is expensive, the main reason to move there is gone. And the jobs that brought people to Austin and Dallas are increasingly remote jobs, which means people can live anywhere. Why would you pay $550,000 for a house in Austin with 1.74% property taxes and brutal summer heat when you could live in a cheaper state with better weather and lower costs? The answer is you wouldn't. And that realization is starting to hit the market. Texas home sales have been declining. Inventory is building up. Price growth has stalled. The boom is over. And if you buy now, you're buying at the peak right before prices start falling. Don't buy in Texas in 2026. State number 3, Arizona. Arizona's problem is simple: water. The Colorado River, which supplies 40% of Arizona's water, is drying up. Lake Mead and Lake Powell are at historic lows. And the water allocations that Arizona depends on are being cut every year. Phoenix, Tucson, and Scottsdale are all facing water restrictions that will only get worse. New construction is being limited because there isn't enough water to support it, and existing homeowners are seeing their water bills skyrocket as scarcity drives up prices. But let's talk about the immediate financial problems. Home prices in Phoenix increased 68% between 2019 and 2023. The median price is now $435,000. And just like Florida and Texas, insurance costs are exploding. Homeowners insurance in Arizona averages $3,200 per year, but that's rising fast due to extreme heat damage. Air conditioners are failing more frequently because they're running constantly in 115-degree summers. Roofs are degrading faster from intense UV exposure. Pools require constant maintenance and repairs. The cost of owning a home in Arizona is far higher than the purchase price suggests. Property taxes in Arizona are relatively low at 0.72% effective rate, but that's one of the only advantages, and it doesn't offset the other costs. Here's what really concerns me about Arizona: the habitability issue. Phoenix is one of the fastest warming cities in America. Summer temperatures now regularly exceed 115 degrees. The number of days over 110 degrees has doubled in the last 30 years. And this isn't just uncomfortable. It's dangerous. Hundreds of people die from heat-related causes in Arizona every summer. And as temperatures continue rising, there will come a point where Phoenix is simply not livable for large portions of the year without extreme energy costs to keep homes cool. The electrical grid in Arizona is already strained during summer peaks, and as more people move in and temperatures rise, the risk of brownouts and blackouts increases. If you buy a home in Arizona now, you're betting that technology and infrastructure will solve these problems faster than the problems accelerate. That's a risky bet. I've watched cities rise and fall over 50 years. Phoenix might be the first major American city to depopulate due to climate uninhabitability. And if that happens, your home value goes to zero. Don't buy in Arizona in 2026. Subscribe to this channel if you want weekly strategies based on 50 years of real market experience. No hype, just what actually works. State number 4, Nevada. Nevada, specifically Las Vegas and Reno, has the same water problems as Arizona, plus some additional unique disasters waiting to happen. Las Vegas gets 90% of its water from Lake Mead, which is drying up. The city is already implementing strict water restrictions. Grass lawns are being banned, water rates are increasing, and the long-term prognosis is that Las Vegas cannot sustain its current population, let alone grow. Home prices in Las Vegas increased 52% between 2019 and 2023, with a median price now around $430,000. Property taxes are moderate at 0.84% effective rate. But insurance costs are rising due to the risk of wildfires in surrounding areas and extreme heat damage similar to Arizona. But here's the biggest problem with Nevada. The economy is too dependent on tourism and gaming. When recessions hit, Las Vegas gets crushed. We saw it in 2008 when home prices dropped 60%. Yes, 60%. People lost everything, and it's going to happen again. The next recession, whenever it comes, will devastate Las Vegas because discretionary spending on travel and gambling disappears first. If you own a home in Las Vegas during a recession, you can't sell it. You can't rent it for enough to cover costs, and you're stuck underwater on your mortgage. The risk-reward simply doesn't make sense. Reno has similar problems. It had a boom from Californians fleeing high costs and remote workers looking for no state income tax. But Reno doesn't have the infrastructure, the jobs, or the water to support continued growth. And as California's economy stabilizes and remote work becomes less common, the reason to live in Reno disappears. Nevada is a speculative market that booms and busts harder than almost anywhere else in America. If you buy now, you're buying near the top of a cycle that will crash hard in the next downturn. Don't buy in Nevada in 2026, state number 5, California. Now, California is more complicated because it's a massive state with very different regional markets. But there are specific areas where buying in 2026 is financial insanity. Coastal California, particularly in Southern California and the Bay Area, has become completely unaffordable for normal people. The median home price in San Francisco is over $1.2 million. In San Jose, it's $1.4 million. In Los Angeles, it's $825,000. Even in San Diego, it's $850,000. These prices are not supported by income. They're supported by speculation, foreign investment, and tech money that's starting to dry up. But the real problem in California is the combination of high prices, high taxes, and increasing disaster risk. Property taxes in California are relatively low due to Proposition 13, but everything else is expensive. State income tax goes up to 13.3%. Sales tax is high, gas is expensive, the cost of living is crushing, and insurance costs in California are skyrocketing due to wildfire risk. If you're in a wildfire zone, which includes most of the desirable areas outside the cities, you're paying $5,000 to $10,000 per year for insurance if you can get it at all. Some insurance companies have stopped writing new policies in California entirely. And here's what nobody talks about. California is losing population. For the first time in its history, more people are leaving California than moving in. The net outmigration started in 2020 and it's continuing. People are leaving for Texas, Florida, Arizona, Nevada, and other states with lower costs. When population growth reverses, home prices eventually follow. It might take years, but it happens. If you buy in California now, you're buying at the peak of a 40-year bull market that's running out of buyers. The only people who can afford California homes are the wealthy, and there aren't enough wealthy people to keep prices rising forever. Don't buy in coastal California in 2026 unless you're wealthy enough that the financial loss won't matter. If you know someone drowning in financial stress about where to buy or whether to buy, share this video with them. It might be exactly what they need to hear, so what should you do instead? Let me give you the 7-step plan for 2026 if you're thinking about buying property. Step 1. If you're considering any of these 5 states, stop. Do not buy in Florida, Texas, Arizona, Nevada, or California in 2026 unless you're buying with cash. You plan to live there for 20+ years, and you can afford to lose money. For everyone else, these markets are too risky. Step 2. Rent and invest the difference. Find a rental that costs 30% to 50% less than a mortgage payment would cost in your area. Take the money you're saving and invest it aggressively. $800 per month invested at 10% returns for 10 years becomes $164,000. That's real wealth. That's flexibility. That's freedom. Most people don't do this because it requires discipline. Do it anyway. Step 3. If you must buy, focus on the Midwest and Southeast, excluding Florida. Markets like North Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia inland areas, Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, and Pennsylvania offer reasonable prices, stable economies, lower disaster risk, and manageable costs. You're not going to get rich from appreciation, but you're not going to go broke either. That's the goal. Don't lose money. Step 4. Never buy more house than you need. The bank will approve you for way more than you should spend. Ignore them. Your housing costs, including mortgage, taxes, insurance, and maintenance, should not exceed 25% of your gross income. If you make $80,000 per year, that's $1,667 per month maximum. Not $3,000. Not $4,000. $1,667. Anything more, and your house poor, which means you can't invest, can't save, can't build real wealth. Step 5. If you buy, get a 15-year mortgage, not a 30-year. Yes, the monthly payment is higher. That's the point. It forces you to buy less house and pay it off faster. On a $300,000 loan at 7%, a 30-year mortgage costs $1,196 per month, and you pay $418,527 in interest. A 15-year mortgage costs $2,696 per month, and you pay only $185,408 in interest. You save $233,000 and own your home in half the time. The $233,000 saved can be invested and will grow into over $1 million by the time you retire. Step 6. Keep a minimum of $50,000 in cash reserves before you buy. Most people buy a house and drain their savings for the down payment and closing costs. Then the air conditioner breaks, or they lose their job and they're in a financial crisis. Never buy a house unless you still have at least $50,000 in liquid savings after the purchase. That gives you a cushion for emergencies and prevents you from becoming a forced seller if something goes wrong. Step 7. Ignore everyone who tells you you're making a mistake by not buying. Your parents, your friends, your coworkers, they'll all tell you you're throwing money away on rent and missing out. They're wrong. You're not missing out. You're avoiding a financial disaster, and in 5 years when the market's correct and prices come down, you'll be in position to buy with cash or a massive down payment while everyone else is underwater on their mortgages. That's the plan. 7 steps. Follow them and you'll build wealth while everyone else is struggling. Now, here's the test. Most people will watch this video, agree with everything I said, and then do nothing. They'll keep renting but won't invest the difference. Or they'll buy anyway, because they feel pressure. Don't be most people. The difference between financial success and financial failure usually comes down to doing the boring, disciplined things that nobody else wants to do. Renting when everyone says buy. Investing when it's not exciting. Saying no when everyone expects yes. That's how you win. I've been doing this for 86 years. I've seen every market cycle, every bubble, every crash. The people who win are not the ones who follow the crowd. They're the ones who follow the math. Follow the math. Rent in 2026. Invest aggressively. Wait for better opportunities. They're coming. Market's always correct. Bubbles always pop. And when this one does, you'll be ready. Drop a comment telling me which step you're starting with. Subscribe so we keep working on this together. And if this helped you, hit like and share it with someone who needs it.